So if you could start on the establishment of the task team itself.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We know that the province of KwaZulu-Natal, historical, that has been a problematic province with regard to political violence, which dates back to the days before democratic South Africa. And that problem remained, although it had subsided prior the establishment of this team, but it started rising again, and we started seeing the leaders of our country being attacked in different levels, which then necessitated an intervention from the SAPS and the executive in terms of trying to mitigate the threat of attacks to our political leaders. And we know of the task team that was established back in 2018. But this political killing task team has its genesis in a previous task team that was established back in 2011. And this was done following the resurfacing of the killings, as I said, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which was dominant at the time. And these killings in the province of KwaZulu-Natal had led into the establishment of, or the provincial government in KwaZulu-Natal, establishing a Madlanga Commission of inquiry, which was established in 2016 by the Premier of the province, Premier Willis Mkhwanazi. And when this team started at the time, 2011, to look at specifically on cases that are involving the political leaders in the country, and with the aim of making sure that at least they can bring the perpetrators of these crimes to court.
General, you referred to intra-party killings. Do you want to please explain that?
Commissioner, in the main, in 2011, we saw the different political parties applying or employing different strategies in terms of the employment of their candidates for different political positions. A typical example, it has been a well-known practice in the country that for one to become a councillor, he has to go and campaign. And through that competition of campaigning, when people vote for you, become a councillor. So the same when you become a mayor, executive mayor, same rule applied. But when that strategy changed by the political parties deciding of who should be a councillor, who should be the mayor of the municipality, it became a conflict amongst the members of the same political party, where one person will have enjoyed the majority from the society, wanting to elevate that person to the position of being a leader of society in that particular locality. But the executive of the political party will take a decision that, regardless of popularity of that individual, but they choose another person to appoint as a leader. And the one who's popular, of course, will feel aggrieved, and the fights then started within the same political party. So that is basically what we're trying to communicate here, Commissioner.
Please continue.
Thank you so much. So the Madlanga Commission, which then was established, did confirm that these many assassinations were linked largely to corruption within local government, especially tenders. So you could imagine the one who is in position of authority as a political party leader or as a leader of society has some kind of influence over the issuing of tenders, and the business people that want to get tenders, they will always be friends with the one who's got an executive authority over that municipality or different provinces. And as a result, that corruption became the center of these incidents of threats, attempted murders, as well as murders. And the key recommendations that came from the Commission is the one that brought about the creation of the independent structures, which include having a designated focus from the South African Police Service in terms of investigation of these cases. And that's why then the South African Police Service responded by creating a team. But, Commissioner, that did not stop. We then saw more of those incidents happen up until 2018, when the President of the Republic decided that the efforts from law enforcement, being the South African Police Service alone, or the Minister of Police at the time, guiding or directing the interventions to try and mitigate this type of crime. It was then important from the present point of view that the police must not work alone. Therefore, the police must put the efforts together with other ministers within the cluster in order to be able to have a focused intervention in terms of trying to mitigate these incidents of political violence, if we were to call it. And as a result, in 2018, the President of the Republic appointed an interministerial committee, which we refer to as an IMC. I want to emphasize again, Commissioner, that the President of the Republic appointed an interministerial committee, which we refer to as an IMC. This committee consists of different ministers within the cluster. That will include the Minister of Police. It will include the Minister of State Security. It will include the Minister of Defense. It will include the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, and the different entities that are within the security cluster were also represented, including state security. So all these ministers, they form that which we refer to as an IMC. And the Minister of Police was appointed as a chairperson of the IMC. So it was the IMC that was mandated to relook at how best can the law enforcement, together with other agencies within the criminal justice system, can put a best possible solution to the incidents of political violence as it was experienced then.
Before you move on, General, if I may, at your paragraph 53, you highlight the reasons for why, in part, the President elected to implement a different approach, which is through the establishment of the IMC. Could you highlight what were the challenges with the task team then, as established from 2011, that informed the President's thinking to establish the IMC to address the same issues that the task team was engaged with?
Commissioner, the work, as I said, from 2011, when the Minister of Police then, together with the National Commissioner, designated specific investigators to work on the cases that are involving the political leaders, it became evident as these incidents were continuing, it became evident that the success of that team was not good enough. There were many challenges. Part of it that was contributing to the challenges was the slow progress in terms of arrest and the very poor conviction rate that was experienced at the time. And as I said, that is why the President felt that whatever intervention that the Minister of Police alone have implemented is not sufficient. Therefore, a group of ministers must come together and look at whether this work that needs to be done, can it be done in a different way than how it was done back then.
From paragraph 55 then of your statement, you look deeper into the functioning and the work of the IMC. Could you take it from there?
Commissioner, as I said earlier in my introduction, that I had occupied different positions. One of them was, which I mentioned, was 2018, when I was deployed in the province of KwaZulu-Natal as the acting provincial commissioner. I had a meeting with the management in KZN at the time as a provincial commissioner, and that was held in May 2018. Where the Deputy Provincial Commissioner was responsible for investigation, Major General Tiliza, together with his team, they briefed me about the work that was done by the team up until that period, 2018. And from there, there was then a briefing that was arranged in order to brief the IMC, and that meeting took place in June, or was held in June, where these group of ministers came down to the province, and I gave a presentation to the ministers with regard to the investigation, because when the Major General Tiliza gave me a presentation together with the team, we had to analyze the challenges that the team has, and to be able to see whether is any areas of improvement that we could initiate in order to assist the team going forward.
General, I apologize. I see that what you are testifying to now is in regard to the meeting of the 11th of June 2018. Can I take you at paragraph 50? Can I take you a page back to paragraph 55? Paragraph 55 seems to suggest an earlier meeting of the IMC. Is that correct?
That is correct. When, as I said, Commissioner, I had met with the team to try and establish who is working on the cases, and the IMC had convened in May as well, as I said, in 2018 after my arrival in the province, where this Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Major General Tiliza, gave a presentation on the work that was done by the team that he was leading at the time from 2011 to 2018. And the Major General Tiliza, and him giving the presentation, the IMC was not quite pleased about the progress made by that team. And they then indicated to all of us that was there that their key aim was to make sure that there is integration of different stakeholders within the justice system to work together in order to be able to address the program of killings of the political leaders in the province. So therefore, the IMC tasked us that we must look at a way of reconfiguring this work that this team is doing in order to be able to have good successes going forward. And that's when we then had to start reworking on a different plan, which the IMCs were not necessarily involved, because theirs was to make sure that there will be a successful work done by all structures within the criminal justice system to prevent or mitigate this incident. So IMC required an extensive investigation into the program, as well as analysis of the solutions deployed by the team in order to be able to mitigate these crimes.
Then, to the point you were making, you are then. It then leads you to the IMC meeting of the 11th of June. You deal with that from your paragraph 58.
Yes, as I said, Commissioner, when I was in the province, I arrived almost at the same time when the President had announced this IMC. So in the initial briefing that was conducted in May, IMC were quite not happy with the work that was done. Because the performance which they were interested in did not inspire confidence that there will be a solution in terms of these incidents that are directed at our political leaders. And as a head of the province at the time, the task to revise this plan fell on my shoulders. So I had to then attend to a new strategy that is going to help us to win the war. And that the IMC conducted another meeting in June, which was a month later. And when they arrived in the province, the group of ministers, as I said, I gave the presentation to them about the outcomes of the investigation and analysis of the work of the team. And in summary, the key conclusion drawn from the analysis that we had conducted back then was that there was an ineffective and not appropriately structured way of working by the police at the time, which one of the challenges that was identified was that the team was operating in silos. We will have a detective working at the police station, which is said to be part of the task team, carrying one docket involving the political leaders, whereas the same detective has other cases that he needs to prioritize that has got nothing to do with the priority that was given to him or her. So those became a bit of a challenge that we had identified. And I concluded the presentation which I made to the IMCs at the time, where I made a proposal that an investigation and a prosecution strategy will be developed in order to try and address the problem. And this will require a specific budget and a specific support that will have to source from the National Commission in order to be able to deal with the problem at hand. The IMC welcomed that proposal, and they granted the requisite mandate for us to proceed in the best way that we can be able to mitigate this threat of this criminality that we're experiencing. So subsequent to that, we then developed a strategy which I led. During that period of development of the strategy, I kept the National Commissioner abreast of the strategy being considered by the team, because we will require the National Commissioner, as the head of the operations in the police, is the one who's managing the operations in the police, to grant us approval on this strategy. So we kept communicating with him as we were developing it, and eventually the National Commission provisionally approved the operational approach and the strategy that we had developed in KwaZulu-Natal. And this strategy was then submitted formally, which is a strategy that was proposing the framework which will include the cost of implementing. And this strategy, the submission that we made, which I signed to the National Commissioner at the time, went through different levels in the policing of recommendation, because, as I said, Commissioner, there was going to be a cost implication associated with this. Amongst, if I may indicate, the cost will include the deployment of other specialized units or police officers from different provinces and with different expertise that are going to assist KwaZulu-Natal in order to be able to carry out this task. So therefore, there was going to be a cost associated with that. So we submitted this to the National Commissioner. The National Commissioner approved it.
Thank you, General. At paragraph 60 to 62, you mentioned specifically a document there, and you indicate that it is annexed to your statement as Annexure MK4. You call this document Implementation Plan, Investigation of Political Related Cases, KwaZulu-Natal, from 2018 July 01 to 2018 December 31. That you do at your paragraph 60. And you say that document you attach as MK4 at paragraph 62. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Can I then refer us to that specific document? It's numbered MK4, it's page 139, Commissioners, of the witness statement. General, if you could turn to that document and confirm that that is the document that we are talking about.
It is correct, Commissioner. This is the document I'm referring to.
Now, in this document, I see that the first page addresses the question of the purpose of the strategy that is set out in this document, which I think is what you have articulated to the Commission already. I would like to draw your specific attention to page 142 of that document. You indicated to the Commissioners that your strategy involved a different operational approach to the problem then plaguing KZN. I would like you to talk to us about the specifics of this special or operational approach and plan, and take us through the nature of the plan, the makeup of the methodology, and the management of the would subsequently be established political Kegels task team. So if we could start at page 142.
Commissioner, this approach and the concept that we adopted, it's a tried and tested operational methodology that we use in many operations in the South African Police Service, which will include different disciplines, as I mentioned, with different capabilities, including intelligence and operational and investigative capabilities in that team, which is multidisciplinary, whose aim is to assist each other to speed up the work that needs to be done. Because ordinarily, you will have a detective working somewhere and the forensic person working somewhere and intelligence working somewhere. But we bring all these together under one central commander that is going to manage them and execute this task. We then establish a command structure of that task team. And the command structure that is going to focus on the execution of the task. And once after establishing that command structure, we then structure how the investigation is going to be conducted by establishing a central mission area, which we refer to as a mission area in the main, where the joint coordination of the operation is conducted under that commander. And then we, which in this case will have been at the provincial office where I was seated. From there, we will then establish a tactical operational areas, tech jocks, tactical joint operational centers, which are then located in different parts of the province that are going to focus on operational activities in that specific area. And then they will report and come and account to the mission area operational center as they execute their task. As I said, there will be an intelligence gathering, there will be analysis of the information, and then operational coordination, which will also include the investigation, as I said, and as well as the combat that will protect the investigators that are working with them. So it's a team that will be self-sufficient as they work. If a typical example, Commissioner, will have expert from forensic in that team, that as and when they found evidence, for instance, a firearm in the crime scene, they don't have to send it to forensic and leave it like that. They know the workings of the forensic, so they will go in there and be able to engage with their colleague to speed up the process of that analysis. Not necessarily that at times they do it themselves, but they will engage with their colleagues because they have access into forensic, unlike a detective who will put it in the reception area and wait until he's told. But the forensic people that are in the team, they've got access to forensic service. They know their colleagues, so they make it easier to speed up the process. And access to some intelligence resources that we need, because it's allocated there and they are able to perform the work that they're supposed to do with speed. and then be able to engage with the prosecutors that are going to help them guide the investigation from the start, to speed up the process, that you don't investigate and you finish and you think you're ready for trial, you go to the prosecutor and start querying some things on the docket. You work with the prosecutor as you develop this investigation. It gives you guidance in terms of what is required, and you go and collect that. So it is that coordination of the work that was the emphasis for this strategy, to help us work, structured in that fashion at the technical side as well as the mission area side. So I hope I've covered everything.
Yes, but midway that page, you list certain operational concepts which I think on their mere reading would sound like they are normal police concepts: intelligence gathering, analysis and coordination and the like. What about this particular task team was peculiar as compared to the previous regarding an approach to these concepts?
The difference is that we will have, Commissioner, as I said, with all these different disciplines coming together, and we have to group them. So we will have I will say, different pillars of focus. There are those that are going to focus on information gathering and collection and analysis. And there are those that are going to focus on investigation, engaging closer with the prosecution and the likes. And there are those that are going to focus on combat. When we refer to combat and direction, are those that are doing arrest, takedown, doing searches, coordinate searches and the likes within the team, escorting of detainees from correctional centers to courts and so forth. And they have their own leg that they focus on. And then we also have the communication section that has to communicate the work that the team is doing, so that we have a common message that goes out there. The compilation of the report that is presented to the executive, updating on the work that the team does, as we will be briefing the public from time to time. So we needed to have that pillar. So it was different pillars of this operation that we employed that help us to be able to do the job.
You indicated earlier that a specific and separate budget was required for this exercise. And overleaf, still with the same document, from 144, page 144, you deal with the cost implications of the strategy. Would you like to highlight important aspects and how it was the costing was undertaken and on what basis the estimation was made? We had to include this, as I said, Commissioner, earlier, that we needed to mobilize different disciplines. South African Police Service is not structured in KwaZulu-Natal. It is a national, one central South African Police Service. So therefore, if we have resources that are not there in KwaZulu-Natal, we have to source it from other provinces, because it is one.
For our purposes, do we really need this detail, advocates?
If the commissioners are comfortable, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be a deep dive into that. There seems to be concurrence on the bench, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Then I will turn over to, after you deal with the cost, from page 146 is a series of signatures. Could you then briefly talk to those signatures, explaining who appended their respective signature and for what purpose?
Commissioner,
there has been a rethink to my right. So perhaps the general should cover that detail.
Perhaps we may
apologies for that.
That's quite all right, Chair. We'll strike a balance. It shall be in the briefest and most succinct manner, General, dealing with the cost implications of this particular strategy. Perhaps I think you should highlight the period for which the budget was intended, and you discuss it in that context.
Okay. Commissioner, as I said, we developed this in June. Our intention was to start with this operational approach from the beginning of July, ending for the year ending in December, end of December, which was a 6 month period. We wanted to deploy over 139 police officers during that period. So as I said earlier, Commissioner, that we will have wanted to bring other police officers that are not from KZN. Therefore, there's a cost associated with the accommodation, and subsistence, and traveling allowances, and so forth. We needed to get facilities for them to work from. Some of them, including, as I said, accommodation where they sleep. And we also needed to have other resources, computers, vehicles, and so forth, they needed to have to allow them to be able to work. Different disciplines are a responsibility of different Deputy National Commissioners, as we explained the structure earlier. So as we proposed this, we needed to make sure before the National Commissioner signs off that these Deputy National Commissioner have an insight of what we want to do, and they make their own recommendations to the National Commissioner in terms of the plan. So that's why you see the submission having been made by myself as a Provincial Commissioner. The first person that signs on there was the National Commissioner, the Deputy National Commissioner was responsible for policing at the time, Jaron Masimula, who is now a National Commissioner, but at that time he was responsible for the left block on the structure that I showed earlier on policing. And the next one that signs off was a Deputy National Commissioner, Lieutenant General Zumane, who was responsible for the middle block, which is an investigation of the police. He recommended that. And the third person that signed was the head of the DPCI, the national head of the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigation. At the time, the Lieutenant General Sibia, who was in that position, had signed and recommended the same. And we then had to get from the corporate side, where the budget was sourced from, a Deputy National Commissioner was responsible for asset and legal service, where we needed this resource from. General Vuma, Lieutenant General Vuma, had signed also the recommendation of this, which means all the deputies that have different roles in terms of supporting the team signed this application, and it was then approved by the National Commissioner for us to be able to do the work.
And if I can take you to page 146, under item 7, you have listed 2 recommendations. Would it be correct to interpret the signatures appended to be in support of the recommendations as set out in item 7? So if you could first read out those recommendations, and then you may respond to my question.
Commissioner, in understanding the roles of all the people that we want them to approve, and as well as what we want to do as this team, was to implement the strategy to investigate and prosecute perpetrators of political related cases. We needed that strategy to be approved first. That's why we'll need people that are responsible for the operational side of policing to satisfy themselves that is this going to achieve the results or the work that is expected. So that was our first recommendation, where we were focusing mainly on the operational side. We're requesting the strategy to be approved to investigate and make sure that there's a prosecution. The second recommendation was for the project to be approved and funded from the national budget on the estimated total cost that is reflected to be managed at the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So we were asking because we understood as a provincial commissioner that there is a budget dedicated, allocated by the CFO for policing in the province, which is already prioritized for police stations to service the communities out there. So this is a project that we are proposing on the side. That's why we asked that the national office allocate a budget specific for that, so that we don't interfere with the operational budget. So the approval as a result and the allocation of the budget came as a result of these recommendations that we made.
So effectively the approval then was for the establishment of this task team in the manner proposed in the plan, and that the cost, the operational cost of that task team would be met out of the national budget and not the KZN budget. Is that a correct interpretation?
That is correct, Commissioner. The funding, the total funding of this political task team came from the national budget. But how it works in government, the cost center being a province of KwaZulu-Natal, the national office will move that money to KZN, but ring-fence for the project. So KZN province will not use that money for anything else except that project. So that's why we have to account on it from time to time. So we had two accounting in the province. Accounting on the normal budget is allocated for the running of the province on one side, and then we account on the project on the side.
Okay. So now we are at a point where the plan is developed and costed and has been approved by all divisions, including the National Commissioner. What happens thereafter? And we are now at your paragraph 64.
As I said, Commissioner, that the plan was approved, and this was presented to the IMC. You'll recall that, Commissioners, we said we submitted this and as early as in June to start this work in July. National Commission approved this thing on the 18th of June, and the work started beginning of July as it was envisaged. We had seen the IMCs in earlier before the work started. The IMCs came down to the province to come and monitor the work, whether is the work that has been done as we had promised them that we are going to develop something else. They came in September, where the National Commission then was also present, where the presentation of this framework, which was approved by the National Commissioner, was made to the IMCs, for the IMCs to be able to understand that which we had proposed and that which we are already doing in order to be able to meet the requests, the expectations of the Interministerial Committee.
I understand from your statement then that as at the 13th of September 2018, the IMC supported the strategy and the approach as set out in the annexure under discussion.
That is correct, Commissioner. The IMCs were quite happy with our approach and what the National Commission has approved and funded and the execution that was already taking place.
I take it that the IMC, being a formal structure, would record its meetings and discussions in a formal document such as the minutes. Those are not attached to your statement to back up your claim that this approach was supported by the IMC. Would you like to inform the Commissioner why that is the case and whether those documents exist at all?
Commissioner, the IMC, each time they came down to the province, they will have a secretariat that will be taking minutes of the presentation that are made to the IMC. And we'll hope perhaps if the commission will want to invite some of those individuals that are involved, they are free to do so. But I believe that at the office of the minister is a person who was Minister of Police, as a person who was the chairperson, and the secretariat came from that office. These minutes should be available for the commission to access.
Do you know what is the security status of those minutes?
They would most likely have been classified. To what level exactly on the classification, I'm not so sure, but they will definitely be classified so that they're not easily available. But if they are declassified, of course, the Commission will be able to access such minutes.
For the record, I'll state that the process, the Secretariat and the evidence leader have started the process of declassification. A request has been put in. It's a number of minutes. And if and when that process of declassification is finalized, same shall be presented and submitted into evidence. To the extent that may become necessary, perhaps on General Mkhwanazi's return, he can then complete this point. around the support by the IMC through this implementation stage. Thank you, Chair. You introduced thereafter another document from your paragraph 67. Could you tell us what, after this plan was accepted, what happened within the task team and its approach?
Commissioner, I must indicate, as I said earlier, that my term in KZN as the acting provincial commissioner was for a year, 2018 to 2019. When we started in 2018, we had appointed different individuals to be responsible for the management of this team. I said earlier, commissioners, that in our operational approach, we needed to have the command structures that are solely dedicated to run that project. So the leader of that team at the time was a Major General Ramatswele, who was the person responsible, accounting to me, of course, as a provincial commissioner. And we had two individuals which were brigadiers at the time, who are now generals, both of them, that were assisting this Major General Ramatswele to manage this project. But the one that I want to highlight in the main amongst the two brigadiers is the Lieutenant General Khumalo, who's now a head of crime intelligence as well. At the time, he was a brigadier when this team started, and he was appointed as a project leader and a coordinator of this team, with his expertise of coordination of operation that he was a post he was occupying at the national level at the time. He was appointed to also coordinate this specific team at the time under the leadership of Major General Ramatswele. And I might just indicate, maybe pause there, Commissioner, indicate that Khumalo had landed in the province of KwaZulu-Natal at the time, deployed with myself to go and act in the province, but not for the task team specific. So, but when this reconfiguration or the strategy was developed for the team, he was then assigned to be part of that team when he started. So he was playing his role under leadership of Major General Ramatswele, and subsequent to that, Major General retired. And then Khumalo was, at the time, had been promoted to a rank of Major General. He was then given the responsibility to be the one who then assumed the role that Major General Ramatswele was performing of leading the team in the province. And of course, he would have been promoted after that to other ranks in the service during this running of this team throughout the project. But in all that, I remain responsible for the work of this political task team, despite the fact that in 2019 I will have moved to the head office, but I still had the responsibility over the work the team was doing. So Khumalo is currently a divisional commissioner at crime intelligence, but he still had that responsibility given to him to oversee and coordinate the work of this team.
So then, if I understand, the appointment to the task team is not dependent on the post occupied by the candidate. It is the candidate that is appointed to the task team who happens at that time to hold a particular position within SAFs. Is that a correct understanding on my part?
That is correct, Commissioner.
In the result that, with the example of General Khumalo, that even as he progresses through the ranks of the SAPS, until eventually he is then appointed divisional commissioner of crime intelligence based in Pretoria, that appointment to the task team is retained and he still discharges that duty.
That is correct, Commissioner. That is the workings of the South African Police Service, that you are given different roles while you are occupying your post. Typical example is that Major General Ramatswele, who was there at the beginning, was stationed at the head office in Pretoria and had his responsibility at the Detective Service Division. They were still carrying out the task while also managing the team on the ground.
And the comprehensive strategy you reference, you have marked MK5 in your statement at paragraph 67. MK5 appears from page 150 of your file 2. You say at 150, it's a summary of the strategy. Is that correct? The comprehensive strategy, as you term it.
That is correct.
And is there anything you would like to highlight about this comprehensive strategy? I take it that it is an improved version of the original plan that we spent some time discussing, that was approved by the IMC. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Any specific highlights that you would like to make in respect of this document without necessarily going through it page by page?
The highlight that I want to bring to the attention of the commissioners is that, as you're going to be seeing on this document, specifically, I think page 157, you'll notice that even on the document itself, it's got two badges that are reflected there, the one of the South African Police Service, as well as the one of the National Prosecuting Authority. So it then became a joint effort as we put this strategy together, that you could see that it is no longer the South African Police operating alone. It is now a joint operation to execute this task, and in order to make sure that that which is expected by the IMC is realized.
And I see at your page 157, it's an organogram. You have on the one hand, we hope to be able to project. On the one side, we have Major General S.D. Khumalo and what appears to be his counterpart, Advocate E. Zungu, and designation given is ADPP.
The head of the NPA in the province, KwaZulu-Natal, was acting at the time, and that was Advocate Zungu, who was the head of the prosecution, who since she is now Advocate Harrison, and she is now not acting but a full-time director of the public prosecution in the province. So she was occupying that position and coordinating with the team and making sure that whatever that is done by the team is coordinated between the two.
So then, to your left, under Advocate Zungu and those blue boxes, is that the contingent from the office of the DPP? You have Advocate Govender, Advocate Ramopa.
On the right side.
On the right side, that's right. Yeah, right side. So.
Yes, that is true, Commissioners. What you see below Khumalo and Zungu, it's a team from the police as well as the prosecution that work together in carrying out this task.
And is this the integration you speak of when you describe the political killings task team as an integrated multidisciplinary unit?
That is correct, and that is what the IMC were expecting.
That's what the IMC was expecting. You indicated in your first plan, MK4, that you had requested and you had recommended, and it was approved, a budget for the task team. That was, however, for a specific period in 2018. Could you highlight how, since then, the task team has been funded and from which sources?
Commissioner, the team has been funded periodically. Each time we make submission on annual basis, and we envisage that maybe the work that they are doing will most likely be concluded at a specific time. That's why we'll project the operational times. And unfortunately, the workload keep on increasing, and the successes of the team demanded that there's a continuation. That is why our initial request that we requested that this fund be coming from the national office dedicated specifically for this project continues. So each time we make a new submission, we request the new funding, and the funding is allocated and the team continues. Ever since the inception, that's how it's been functioning. It has never touched the budget of provinces or specific units, but it was a specific allocated budget for the team.
You say you make submissions and you seek approval from who? Who do you make the submissions to? Whose approval do you seek?
It's always a national commission that will approve the operations of this nature in the South African Police Service. So the different levels, which will include critical, the Chief Financial Officer of the South African Police Service, who must then indicate the availability of funds. At times we'll get funds not exactly as we ask for. We will ask for 1 rand, they give us 50 cents. A typical example. But the CFO has to indicate to the National Commission that there is money available to carry out, to finance this project for this period before the National Commission can approve that.
And is this process of seeking approval, is it a formal process in a sense that it's reflected in formal documentation of SAPS, or all it takes is a call from yourself as a provincial commissioner to the National Commissioner? How does it work?
Commissioners, state money has to be accounted for. So we have to follow a formal process to do this. That's why when we make a submission and the budget is allocated, we'll have started in the middle of the year. We did not foresee what we're going to need in the following year. But as the years progresses, we're able to project that in the following year, we're going to need X amount of money for this. We make a submission. And when the budget is allocated by the CFO, it's going to be declared in the books of the organization as we present before the oversight committees, be it Auditor General of South Africa or the Parliament. They get to know that the specific budget allocated for this project and the outcome of the project is also presented to those structures in order to justify the money spent.
So, is it your point that there is a written record that can be obtained for all the approvals sought and granted and the budgets allocated for the task team in each successive year?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Turning then to page 26 of your statement at paragraph 21, you talk about the concept of formation of task teams and how that is normal within the South African Police Services. Could you briefly put us through that?
Commissioner, the establishment of the task team within the South African Police Service, it's a normal operational response that we employ in order to address a specific issue or challenge that we experience in the country. And these task teams are constituted at the provincial level by the discretion of the provincial commissioner, and some of them are initiated in the national level by the discretion and approval of the national commissioner. Political Killings Task Team is one of many of such project-based interventions that we employed in the South African Police Service. I might indicate that we have 11 of them at a national level that I can make a reference to. Political Task Team is one of those projects. There are many others, of which some of them are predating the date when the task team started, that have been in existence in the South African Police Service. Operating in different provinces include Gauteng, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, as well as one that is running across all provinces, which is coordinated at national level.
You draw a distinction between what you say is a task team established at provincial level, and you distinguish that from the 11 which you term national priority intervention operations, of which the task team is one. What is the difference between the two categories?
The provincial and national?
No, between this national priority intervention operations, of which the task team is one, and the other task teams established within the various provinces. In the main, largely, Commissioner, as I said, they are established in order to address a specific problem. What we see in the main is that those that are established at the provincial level don't have a budget. They work from the operational budget that is within the province. There's no specific allocation budget for those. But the ones that are established at the national level will form the priorities of addressing a specific problem in the country, which might be confined to a specific province. And therefore, the national level intervenes, and in majority of the time, or largely, there is funding that comes from
the national level for these type of projects, largely because these national projects will include police officers that are coming from the length and breadth of the country to go to a specific area where the problem exists. So if the problem is here in Gauteng, it might require the mobilization of resources from other provinces to come into Gauteng and work with the Gauteng. That's why the budget has to be made available for that purpose. But one in the provincial level, most likely going to work from home. So you just drive, instead of going to one station, you go to another, you do the work, you go and sleep at home after that. So the one at provincial level does not necessarily have any financial implications.
Okay. In the next few paragraphs, you deal with aspects you have already covered, including the organogram within the task team and the coordinating structure. At page 29, that is the structure we had on the wall. That is the prevailing structure as we speak today.
That is correct. That is what the team is using currently.
You deal from page 30 with the fact that the political killings task team, my apologies, operates in KwaZulu-Natal, and at paragraph 83. You say it operates at KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape under General Khumalo's supervision and directed by the National Steering Committee, the IMC, and the President. Now, could you explain what you mean by the first statement that it operates in KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape, if you said its original mandate was to address the political killings within KwaZulu-Natal?
General, before you respond, have you explained to us what the National Steering Committee is? If you have, please forgive me, just repeat what that is.
Commissioner, thank you. If I invite you again to number 80 on my statement that shows the structure, that there is a steering committee that is reflected there. The steering committee, it's a coordination structure that looks at the performance of the team. And this one that is reflected here is at the provincial level. So which means the people who are not necessarily part of the day-to-day operation will come and receive presentation and assess the work that the team is doing and be able to guide if there's areas or challenges that the team is experiencing. So at the provincial level is reflected, we have that, as well as at national level, we had a similar thing, as I had indicated earlier on approvals, that will have these deputy national commissioners, including the head of DPCI, who will be signing on the project. So they at the national level will also form a committee that will look at that, because the report must land on the desk of the head of these institutions that are involved, be it the National Director of Public Prosecution and the National Commissioner of Correctional Services, the DG at SSA, Chief of the Defense, and all those entities that falls part of the cluster will receive that presentation before it's presented to the IMC. So that's basically what the steering committees are doing.
Now you may respond to the question that was asked by the evidence leader.
Thank you so much. Commissioner, the political killings task team is referred to all the time as a KwaZulu-Natal political killings task team. It was established, as I said, by the National Commission of Province KwaZulu-Natal and supported by the IMC. I think as a result of how they land in the Eastern Cape, it was a result of their good performance. You will see the success rate that this team have achieved, which then caused a problem for themselves, because the state president had received complaining about incidents that had happened at Fort Hare University in the Eastern Cape, where there seems to have been challenges with regard to the investigation of those incidents that were happening at that university. And there was a direction that this team must also take responsibility on investigating those cases. That's how they landed in the Eastern Cape.
Sorry to interrupt again. At the end of paragraph 93, you actually do make the point about the success of the task team. The last sentence reads, the PKTT thus has a demonstrably unmatched success rate. What I'm interested in is this: what is the comparator? One can only meaningfully talk of unmatched success if there is a stated norm or comparator. What's that comparator?
Commissioner, I will not necessarily be able to give the figures at this present moment, but the detection rate as prescribed has a standard that is set, which is a performance target that both the police investigation in terms of detection rate for the successful prosecution is measured. It appears in our books that we present, which is managed under detective services. And then also the success rate within the NPA themselves. They've got their own measurement target that they have as a department that they account for in terms of their annual performance plan that they throw and present to Parliament every year. So combine the two when you look at how the team performed, both on investigation and detection, successful prosecution, as well as you compare that with a normal investigation work that is done and prosecution that is done by the NPA in courts. And this one, detection and prosecution rate success is higher. We can make those available to the Commissioner, so we're able to draw comparison.
Thank you, Chair.
I stopped you mid-sentence, General, so you may continue where you were.
Yeah, I realize that the commissioners have read this statement, so
and in fact, because the chair jumped a couple of pages ahead to your conclusion. So yes, I agree with you. It's demonstrative of that. But then, if you could take a step back.
Yes.
The issue we're dealing with was that you indicate that this political killings task team was established to deal with political killings in KZN. At your paragraph 83, you then suggest that it currently operates in both KZN and the Eastern Cape. And I wanted to understand how that came about.
As I said, the task team was established and it accounts to the steering committees. So when the direction came that they must go to the Eastern Cape, it will have came through the normal channel, a project leader getting a directive from the steering committee that will have received this directive from the IMC. The IMC will have been requested by the President to see to it that a similar intervention is done in the Eastern Cape. So the IMC felt instead of creating something new, we already have something that looks to be working. They approached the National Commissioner or the National Steering Committee to say, can we move this thing over there and see how it can work? And that's why the National Commissioner and the Steering Committee agreed that they are going to direct a project leader to move over there and be able to assist in the Eastern Cape.
Okay. From paragraph 85, you deal with what you term successes of the PKTT. The next couple of pages reflect quite a lot of statistics. Not inviting you to go into the statistics themselves. I think you have persuaded the chair as to the successes of the PKTT. But the issue I would like you to highlight, and I'll take you like paragraph to paragraph. Starting then at paragraph 87, you indicate that from 2018 to date, the task team has been assigned responsibility for approximately 612 dockets. So that's over a span of more than 5 years, about 7 years. It is your description of the dockets set out in paragraph 87, I would like you to spend some time on. You indicate that This includes 333 dockets concerning politically related cases. I think by now we are clear what that could be, like the political killings in KZN. You then say there are 90 parallel cases. Could you explain to us the concept of parallel cases?
The parallel cases, Commissioner, will be cases that are of a high profile, that might not necessarily meet the criteria that have been laid out on what the team must focus on. However, they might be of such a significant to the province, largely for us to have a focused investigation on those cases. When the team started, we drew up the category of cases that the team must deal with. Largely were cases that were related to the political killings. But because we understood from the Madlanga Commission that the motive for these killings in the main were tenders. So, and the people that were affected in the main are the municipal managers, the CFOs or municipalities, and as well as different departments within the provincial government that end up being exposed in these matters because they are not awarding a tender to the place where some people are expecting them to send it to, which might be politically driven. And you'll find that while we are pursuing that, maybe the family relatives of such individuals, they become victims themselves. Typical example, if the CFO or the municipal manager relative is kidnapped, or the family is attacked, and they were thinking that they are attacking the political leader or the CFO or municipal manager, but maybe they attack his family and he's not there at the time. We can see as a province that this looks like was directed at this person, and this person is protected by the work of this team, but the relative is not. But we can see this attack was aimed at getting to this person, so we take that docket and it becomes a parallel docket because it's not listed. That individual who's a victim is not listed as one of the priority people that we must focus on. But because of the sheer involvement of those people in the work, that a specific person that we're supposed to be protecting is affected, then we take those and they become parallel.
Then can you distinguish that from what you call ad hoc? Because another category is ad hoc cases.
Then the ad hoc cases will be some cases that are. No, I'm Commissioner. You'll pardon me. I mixed the two. The parallel cases. Ad hoc cases, the one I'm talking about, ad hoc, that would be someone related to the person we're looking for, or we're supposed to protect. That is ad hoc. My bad. My apologies for that. Parallel cases, Commissioner, will be a case where a typical example, we're going to find a firearm that is used to murder or attack a high-profile individual who is a political figure or who's within the category of the cases that we're supposed to investigate. But when we take that firearm to forensic for analysis, you discover that that firearm is also linked to other matters that have got nothing to do with this case. Typical example could be a death of a school principal somewhere over something that is unrelated to what we're investigating. But because we now have a firearm and the likelihood is that the suspect that we have on this case and the weapon used is also undergoing another case elsewhere. So we want to bring that case into this team so that we are able to manage both of these cases. Otherwise, there might be conflict of court dates on both sides that will frustrate the work of the team. So we then bring those ad hoc cases that come on board. That is one angle of ad hoc. We have other ad hocs, Commissioner, as police officers go about your policing business, where members will be moving from point A to point B and they see a suspicious vehicle, They will stop that vehicle, and upon searching the car, they will find illicit goods inside, illegal firearms and so forth, and they effect arrest. So they carry that docket as well. Not necessarily it was part of their plan, but by default, because they managed to deal with it. And sometimes they might get critical information that is urgent for them to attend to, and they attend to that, and it produces a docket. So those become part of ad hoc. That's why you see, even on the number, those ad hoc become many as compared to parallel. Parallel, as I said, they are more closer to the cases that are a priority of the team.
Thank you, General. Chair, Commissioners, the rest of the paragraphs following up to the paragraph that the Chair highlighted, where the PKTT claims unmatched success, 93. These are the specific of the statistics. I do not intend to go through those unless there are questions from the Commissioners, but the statistics are set out in those paragraphs.
Evidence Leader Sillo.
Yes, Commissioner.
Can the General just complete the picture for us in relation to paragraph 87?
87.
What is 87?
Yes.
On page 31. University of Fort Hare and
the traditional
leader investigations. What are those?
You understood the question, General. Just to point out, these will be dealt with in greater detail later, but I think, no, for purposes of Commissioner Khumalo's question, let's complete that scene, because they are referred to in the same paragraph. We've dealt with parallel cases, we've dealt with ad hoc, but in that paragraph as well, it speaks of 18 University of Fort Hare cases and 51 traditional leaders investigations. So could you briefly explain to us what is meant by 18 University of Fort Hare cases, and how they come to be part of the task team mandate, as well as the 51 traditional leaders investigations?
Thank you, Commissioner. The Commissioner did take us to the last sentence on paragraph 93, which reads that the political task team killings task team thus has a demonstrably unmatched success rate. It is this success that brings about these interventions, as we had reflected also on paragraph 83. When the crisis is observed at a particular area by the executive authority, and a request is then made for the intervention in that front. So in this case, I did indicate that previously how the team landed in the Eastern Cape, specifically at University of Fort Hare. That's why you see the total number of cases that the team has been dealing with at Fort Hare University, 18 in total, which was mainly also murders, attempted murders as a result of corruption within the university. The request as a result of the pressure from the traditional leadership that themselves were experiencing attacks largely in KwaZulu-Natal province. That influenced, I believe, the President of the Republic to approach the executive IMC in order to direct them to also pay special attention on this incident that not only affecting political leaders, but also affecting traditional leaders, specifically in KwaZulu-Natal province. So as a result, through the IMC and the steering committee, the team was then given the responsibility to also investigate cases that are involving the attacks and deaths of traditional leaders in our province of KwaZulu-Natal. So that's why you see that total 51, which was also in addition to the work of the team.
So, in essence, the original mandate of the political killings task team, as I understand you, was expanded to include the two issues you speak of, the University of Fort Hare and traditional leaders.
That is correct.
Can you indicate for the record who extended that mandate?
So it's a mandate that to be directed by the IMEC after approaching the steering committee, and then the steering committee through the National Commissioner will then direct the team to take over that responsibility. And
just for, I guess, my own edification to conclude, particularly on the Eastern Cape, the mandate, so far as Eastern Cape is concerned, the extension of the mandate is specifically to the University of Fort Hare cases, such that once completed, the political killings task team would not have a role in the Eastern Cape.
That is correct. I must indicate, Commissioner, that the team being moved from KZN to focus on the Eastern Cape, it did not necessarily mean that there is a complete new budget that is allocated for that purpose. So they had to do that work with the same budget that we did not plan for originally, that we planned to do the work in KZN, but they use the same budget to also move to the Eastern Cape to do the work.
Thank you, General. Chair, I see my junior points out that it's 2 after 13. The issue, I was hoping to finish this particular topic so I can start a new one at 2 o'clock, but that would eat into your lunch, and perhaps on the first day it's uncalled for.
Are you able to estimate how long you will take with it?
3 minutes. Thank you.
Only if it is.
3 minutes. Then if we could just conclude on this topic, because the next main one we'll be dealing with touches on other issues. I want to refer you to paragraph 96, page 35 of your statement, and together with paragraph 98. My question is, what is the status in terms of the approvals thus far granted? What was the status of the political killings task team in the financial year 2024-2025? And what is the current status in the year 2025 to 2026? I ask that question mindful of the minister's letter of the 31st of December 2024, which we'll be engaging with. I'm asking from the perspective of submissions and seeking approval for the continuation of the mandate of the task team. So if we could start then with 96, and you explain to the Commission what the status was then at the time that the approval was sought, and what the status is now, and that would be at paragraph 98.
Commissioner, as I alluded to before, that the offices of the Deputy National Commissioners also engages on recommending the approval of the work of the team. Last year, on the 16th of April, through the submission that was made for the political killings task team to continue with its work in KwaZulu-Natal for the period of 12 months, which was a financial year, and also to request the approval of the budget for that purpose. And also recommending that we retain Lieutenant General Khumalo, despite the fact that he is now appointed as a Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence, but retain him to coordinate, to project lead or project manage this political killings task team. And that submission went to the National Commissioner, of course, via different levels within the National Office, of which one of them that I want to highlight, that the Deputy National Commissioner, Lieutenant General Sibia, who is currently the Deputy National Commissioner of Crime Detection, received this submission, and he recommended the deployment of, or the continuing deployment of this team and the funding thereof, as well as the approval, recommendation for the approval of Lieutenant General Khumalo to be a project manager for this team for the period 2024 to 2025. And this submission was made to the National Commissioner via the CFO, who allocated the funds, and the National Commissioner approved as such. So an approval was granted in April last year, which an approval will have lasted until the end of the financial year, which is March 2025. So that's what has happened in the previous year.
And just to complete perhaps that point, because you do refer to the document at paragraph 96, MK6, it's a document appearing at page 171 of the bundle. And I would like just to quickly refer you to page 174 thereof. Again, it's that signature page, an overleaf culminating in, I think, the National Commissioner's signature. Is that the document that you say reflects Lieutenant General Sibiya's signature in support of the continuation of the task team for the financial year 2024-2025?
That is correct, Commissioner. The signatures sitting on that page is that one of the project manager, Lieutenant General Khumalo, Lieutenant General Sibiya as a Deputy National Commissioner Crime Detection, as well as CFO, who's a Lieutenant General Timpane of the service.
And lastly, then, I'd referred you to paragraph 98, and now that deals with the year 2025-2026. Just to make the point, don't have to discuss it, that you indicate that it would appear from the document that funds are available for continuation, but final approval is still awaited from the National Commissioner for the 2025-2026 year.
That is correct, Commissioner. I must indicate that the 2024-2025 was for a financial year ended in March 2025. April, May, and June, the National Commissioner had approved the task team to continue its work, albeit a reduced scale. So they remained on deployment doing the work during that 3 months that which preceded the expiry of the financial year. After that, on the 23rd of July, there was a new submission this year to the National Commissioner requesting an approval of the fund for the extended period, not for the few months. The one of April, May, June was only for a few months, but we requested an extension of a longer period, which is going to end next year, the end of the financial year. That request that was submitted to the National Commissioner requesting that further extension, as well as made a submission also to the CFO. Approval has been granted by the National the approval of this work of the team has been granted by the National Commissioner. The team is now fully deployed to do the work.
But with reference to paragraph 98, your conclusion is that the final approval by the National Commissioner is awaited for the remainder of the financial year 2025-2026. Is that correct?
Yeah, the final approval by the National Commissioner was awaited on completion of the statement. Commissioner, maybe I'm confined to this, okay. But because I'm a police officer, part of the operation, I'm now privy to the fact that there is financial indication also that was done by CFO on the budget that can be made available to allow us to continue with the work.
So we may make the note that for 2025-26 financial year, it's also approved, the continuation of the task team.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I ate into your lunch. I complete that part of the testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, General. Thank you, Advocate Sololo. Let us resume. Let us resume at 2 p.m.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.